April 10th, 2025 in the Post Republic. This is Adrian with Silas and Tyler. And Tyler has the top news stories of the day. Let's start off there.
Oh yeah, lots of stuff going on in the Post Republic. Of course, the libs are doing what they do best. They are protesting again. We got hundreds of thousands hit the streets in cities like Washington, D.C., reacting to Donald Trump's return to presidency and his early moves on tariffs, immigration, and deregulation. We also got a new boogeyman. New boogeyman just dropped. Iran nuclear talks looming. The Trump administration is gearing up for talks with Iran and Oman set for Saturday, amid warnings from a DC think tank that Iran's nuclear program is dangerously close to weaponization. We also have a prisoner swap with Russia. Ksenia Karelina, a Russian American jailed in Russia for a $51 donation to Ukraine, was freed in a swap for a Russian German prisoner held in the U.S. The exchange, brokered in Abu Dhabi, highlights ongoing tensions and delicate back channels between the U.S. and Russia. What else do we got? Oh, yeah, of course, the biggest story of the week, maybe the century, the tariffs. We got tariff rollbacks and market swings. Trump's decision to pause most of his reciprocal tariffs while keeping a hefty 125% tariff on China sent markets soaring after weeks of volatility. The move has businesses and traders scrambling to adjust, with soybeans and tech caught in the crossfire. We got another boogeyman. We got the measles outbreak. Is still roaring on. It's probably going to be a new pandemic. CDC is pushing for additional measles vaccines for some travelers as outbreaks hit record levels 25 years after the disease was declared eliminated, just like they eliminated Down syndrome in the US. This has reignited debates over public health mandates and vaccine hesitancy. So, we got a lot going on in the Post Republic. I think the most important thing is the tariffs. Trump's tariff tactics. I guess he paused them. 90-day pause on most of them, while some countries are agreeing to go down to zero, maybe match a 0-0. With China being revealed as pretty much the bad actor on the scene. Pretty much everybody's willing to make a deal except for China. So, what do you guys think? Is he winning? Is he winning the trade war? Is it a trade war?
I think his plan the whole time to pretty much see who would come to the table and work with America for a greater future in general, like internationally. And so it just made China kind of stick out like a sore thumb when they were the only ones. They are the only ones, or was there anyone else?
That's a good question. I'll grok it.
But yeah, them being so aggressive, it's part of their culture to not back down. And I think Trump also understands that. And he's just going to keep forcing them to come to an agreement, but it'll be something that really benefits them and looks good for them, culturally. I think maybe a gift of technology or something kind of grand,
Well, and another thing to take into consideration is not just the tariff percentages, but also the non-tariff trade barriers is something to keep in mind as well. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about going down to 0-0, but there are also other non-tariff trade barriers to take into consideration as well.
Well, it raises the question, was the goal of the tariffs to just lower tariffs on other countries, or is it actually a play to bring back manufacturing in that way as well? Because, there was a lot of talk that he's going to get rid of the income tax, use tariffs as a way to do that. Was that just kind of a a screen to mask what his actual intentions are. And I think what's going on is like it's hard to know. Like we can try to
Mhm.
parse what's going on, and I think there's definitely a tactic there by Trump to not show his hand, to say, "Oh, I'm going to do this for this reason. I'm doing it for a reason that you don't know, and you're just going to have to follow along." And there's definitely a genius in that. But at the same time, it does create more instability because people don't understand what the play is.
Well, and markets hate uncertainty, right? So, that uncertainty is going, they're blaming Trump for the uncertainty, which is causing the stock market to crash, which was pretty much artificially inflated in the first place. But yeah, I mean, you can't go out there until, I mean, if he's going to be successful in his negotiations with other countries like China, then he can't go out there and say, "Hey guys, wink, wink, don't worry about it. I'm actually just using this as a negotiation tack." I mean, that's going to take away the entire. So they have to go out and make noises that this is serious. We mean business. It's not just about getting a better deal.
Mhm. It's
So
it's about fair trade, and I think his target was 10% the whole time,
mm,
but he had to, like, treat everyone equally, and that would be the reciprocal at first, and then whoever came to the table, he was like, "Okay, let's just keep it at 10%," and that's what he probably wanted the whole time with the way he does deals. He does a big ask and then
mm.
pulls it back to what he actually
So
wanted.
now 10% seems kind of low and normal,
Yeah,
which
but
would people would have been screaming
so
about
much
before.
that's so much money back into the United States, and it's a big enough percentage that some manufacturing will move to the United States to kind of be in our market.
Yeah, and I think you'll get a little bit of both. We'll get incentives for people to come do manufacturing over here, so we'll get more jobs, but we'll also get better trade deals. So we'll get a little bit of both across the board, or a little bit of everything across the board. It's what it
Mhm.
seems like to me.
Yeah.
I do have, let's see, European Union, the EU announced retaliatory tariffs, but paused them for 90 days to negotiate. Canada imposed 25% tariffs on some U.S. vehicles as a countermeasure, which is significantly lower than China's 84%. Mexico has vowed counter tariffs, but no specific rates higher than China's. Brazil, Japan, South Korea, and India, these countries have been mentioned in discussions about potential retaliatory tariffs, but no announcements indicate rates exceeding 84. So seems like China's 84 is the highest number.
Mm,
Um, and then if Trump is such a one upper, I mean, if you say 84, he's going to be like 184.
yeah. So they're at 147 or something like that now? Is that the last number I heard?
I heard 125.
Okay. I don't know where I got that, but maybe it was him threatening that, and then he dropped it back to.
Well, China already had what? So they announced the 84 on top of, let's see, total percentage of tariffs imposed by China on U.S. goods, as announced recently, is 84%. This figure comes from China's retaliatory measures in response to the U.S. tariffs, which escalated to 104% and later 125% on Chinese imports. But it's kind of, I mean, we don't really send anything over there. So if they're going to tariff us back, it kind of like doesn't have the sting. Like our tariffs hurt them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Trump knew that the whole time. I mean, if you look at the trade imbalance, because we're the biggest consumer, all of the goods are being imported into our country instead of the other way around. So in that way, we have the cards,
Mm.
um, and we can control how that plays out, because it's not going to, like, Canada tariffing the U.S. It's like, oh wow, okay, like it's funny to me. I think I mentioned this last time, but Canada's putting ads up saying tariffs are a tax and billboards around the US. And so their response after doing that is to tariff US
Mhm.
goods, which they're putting ads out there saying it's tax on their citizens. So they're taxing their own citizens according to their logic. if you want to call it that. So it's just funny they're playing both sides. Like, these are bad, and we're going to double down. All right, well,
Tariffs are only bad when the U.S. does it. I mean, that's really, isn't it always? Doesn't it always come down to that?
well, yeah, it's the same with borders.
Yeah.
It's only bad if the U.S. or other, in that case, other Western countries try to have a border. It's racist. But,
What, 40 billion or what, over 100 billion to protect Ukraine's border?
well, yeah, of course. I mean, don't be a bigot.
And by the way, when is that war going to end?
Oh man.
Well, I think the thing about that is Trump promoted that he was going to be able to end it in one day, and he had admitted it was hyperbolic to say that because ultimately he's not the one that's going to. He could leverage it as much as possible and say we're not going to fund it, but there's other actors in play like the EU and other entities that want to continue that war, and then Putin also has to come out of it looking strong. So he's not just going to want to say, well, Trump wants to end it, so I'm going to end it, because they've lost a lot of, I don't even know how many Russian soldiers.
Yeah.
So he's not just going to end it just because Trump's not going to fund Ukraine, So I think it's not as simple as if the U.S. just stops funding it, it ends. And it was kind of promoted that way a little bit, and that was maybe a little disingenuous on Trump's part. And so I don't know when it's going to end, but it certainly has a better shot of ending, but it's still going on.
Should have never have happened. Would have never have happened.
Yeah, it does suck. It's one of the worst things going on really in the world because it's
unbelievable.
Year 3 now?
Yeah, 3 years.
It's crazy.
Pretty much an entire generation of Ukrainian men dead, gone, gone forever. Is Ukraine even going to be able to? That's why, I know it sounds messed up, but Ukraine should have just given up right away. What's the point of fighting a war and sending hundreds of thousands of your own men to die when you know you're not going to win the war? That was a bunch of propaganda from the beginning that they even had a chance. There's no way that they had a chance. They can't. And as far as my estimation goes, like, there's no way they can win that war. I don't know about what. I'm open to your guys' opinion on that too.
Well, the only way they win that war is if the U.S. actually sent troops and was fighting Russia.
Yeah.
Which would be insane. It would be World War III, essentially. So.
Yeah. I heard China sent troops in that war. Let me see.
Russia opened up for China to have guys pretty much sign up for the war, and I think I heard there's 150 or so that have done it so far. But
Americans have died over there also. I think it might be the insane Stand With Ukraine people that actually live by their values and want to fight. It could also be contractors, because that's kind of the gray area of military contracting and mercenary kind of services. But
you guys know who Tim Kennedy is?
Yeah.
So I heard him talking on podcasts. I don't know if it was Joe Rogan or what podcast he was on, but he said that he had been over there and he was either training people or was involved in the fighting for Ukraine against Russia. And he said, I think that communism's bad, and I think the Soviet Union is bad, and I will fight to the death to stop the Soviet Union and any sort of communist countries. And I'm like, guy, it's not the Soviet Union. They're not even communist. And you're over there in Ukraine. We've never even admitted that we have troops over, on the ground. I don't think. I just thought it was so insane. I lost every little piece of respect I ever even had for the guy, which wasn't that much, but I have respect for him in the way that, he fought for our country and stuff like that. But I just think that's insane that he admitted that he had been over there fighting or training people. I mean, that's just psychotic.
For communism, that's not a communist country. We're not
Yeah.
talking about China or North Korea or Canada. We're talking about Russia, which is not a communist country.
Well, a lot of this stuff is always predicated on like certain assumptions. They'll say the talking point is Putin wants to reassemble the Soviet Union. And when you like break that down, you think, okay, Putin wants to, it's like, how do you know? And they'll say, well, he said it. And it's like, well, I mean, politicians and world leaders say all kinds of stuff. I don't know if, and you would have to be able to prove to me with an extremely high likelihood that that's actually what he's trying to do. And I don't even think if he won the war in Ukraine that that would really get him that much closer to that. I don't think the entire world would allow, him to reestablish the Soviet Union and continue. I mean, and then another one of the assumptions or assertions is that he won't stop there.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how do you know that? Okay, well, you better be right.
Yeah, he's some sort of threat to the world order that was trying to take over, and that's probably something that we're not aware of yet. And I've heard that through a few different reports where like Russia is actually way different than, and the same with China. I've heard people that will go to China, it's like way different than they paint it in their mind. So I feel like everyone that we used to hold as enemies is only enemy in kind of like that imaginary way. And besides China, I guess they're kind of showing their hand right now. They seem to be wanting to start a fight in a way, but
Yeah.
they
Well, we
can't
talked about
do much.
identifying threats and agreeing on those threats. I think that China is probably the most, from my estimation. I'm not a
I agree.
national security expert in any way, but I see them as, intuition and, sense data tells me that they're probably the most dangerous, more dangerous than Iran or Russia, in my opinion.
Yeah, because China, again, it kind of goes back to their culture and what they have set out to do for thousands of years is to conquer and manipulate regions around them. So it's like they've figured out how to do that through technology and all kinds of other ways. Culture now, they seems like they pretty much own California, like as far as politicians and
the land itself.
yeah, they're getting all the farmland, huh? That shouldn't be allowed. It seems like part of the rules of having a country is not letting other countries
Own parts of it.
It's interesting too because we had the Cold War that was fought for I don't know how many decades, and the CIA would be involved in overthrowing governments if they were leaning a certain way. But when it came to China, they were like, let's normalize relations. I think it was Nixon that did that in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then we've just seen that open up even more. And I've actually been hearing and reading some stuff from people that say like the CIA wasn't actually as anti-communist as you would like to believe, in that they've actually they they've overthrown governments or supported certain revolutions in favor of communism in certain instances. Rhodesia was one of those. That Rhodesia was pretty much abandoned by the West because of the stain of colonialism. And then we had Zimbabwe that rose up, and a bunch of Rhodesians basically got killed. And there's issues in South Africa too. Obviously, I'm not arguing in favor of apartheid, but a lot of what happened there and what you see now, it's the current state of that country is pretty disturbing. That people don't really talk about a lot, but
South Africa.
South Africa, yeah.
Don't they openly call for genocide against the whites?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, and it's happened. I think I saw a stat. It was like 28,000 South African farmers, the Boers, like the white people there, have been murdered in the last like I think 10 years or so.
Wow.
I don't recall Putin ever calling for any genocides. I don't know.
You just wait for it.
You don't
It's going to
know,
be
man.
against the whole world.
I love how our last podcast got banned in Russia. I don't think it had anything to do with our content or whatever, but
Yeah.
that was funny. you're like
Only in Russia.
you're like I don't know. We're generally pretty pro Russia. Thought that was funny. But yeah, I do think that Trump is winning on the tariffs, and I think he already got what he wanted, which
Mhm.
is to reveal China and to normalize the idea of actually having some sort of reciprocal tariffs.
Yep.
And eventually we're going to get better trade deals. I mean, even if I hated Trump, which I don't, I would still say he's a master negotiator. I mean, I think that would be a fair thing to say, even if I was
He
a
wrote
big
a
old
book
Democrat.
on it.
Yeah. But did he, though? I heard he didn't actually write that book,
So
Silas.
I heard someone argue, and this is a good point, his ego would not allow anyone else to dictate and write a book for him. He would want it to be his book,
Yeah.
That's not true. His dad actually wrote the book. His dad gave him all the money. Wrote a book.
Oh, man. I remember. Yeah. Anyway, I think he's gonna win. The markets bounced back. Somebody in my family who's pretty wealthy, who's generally pro Trump, but is more concerned about his assets and stuff. And he
Mhm.
said he was pissed that about Trump's tariffs because the market took a pretty serious hit and a lot of his money's in there.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, first of all, it's kind of selfish and greedy to only think about yourself. Second of all, it's your decision to put your money into the market that is so sensitive that it will literally crash or soar just based off of a freaking tweet. That sounds pretty like unstable,
Yeah.
Is he a boomer?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess what's the generation after the boomers?
That'd be Gen X.
The silent generation, or no?
It's Gen X.
Okay. No, he's a boomer.
Okay.
Yeah. But and it's like, okay, just wait it out, dude. You haven't lost anything if you haven't sold it.
Mhm.
And of course it pretty much came back. I mean, it's not all the way recovered.
Yeah, buy the dip, dude. Don't you know this by now?
Yeah, I think all of his money's already in it.
Right. Yeah. That's why he's more concerned, probably.
But I think he's kind of recovered. His mood has recovered.
Mhm.
You see people like Ben Shapiro out there just like having a conniption fit about it, and it's like, dude, there's national security reasons why we need to do this stuff. And if you're only concerned about your portfolio, or I mean, you're obviously an extremely rich person, and
Mhm.
you're seriously going to go on your show and literally admit that you're in a bad mood because the market is dipping and you're pissed off at Trump for doing that to you. I mean, that's just so greedy and just short-sighted. And I think that this should have been done a long time ago. And I'm tired of people just like, I'm just tired of that crap. We need to actually like do what's right for our country and not sit here and worry about Ben Shapiro's portfolio.
Yeah.
Ugh, disgusting.
We're returning kind of back to what the United States was doing before wars, basically, because it was tariff based income until World War One, and then that's when the citizens were taxed for building the weapons and all the extra resources that were needed for the wars. But then it became normalized to have taxes, and now there's plenty of people, if you search on YouTube, that haven't paid taxes for decades because of legal grounds that people don't realize you have.
Some people say that the income tax is unconstitutional, or
Ratified by enough states, technically, I think.
Right.
And I don't think the founders had that in mind, but not that anybody gives a shit about what the founders would say.
They're old white men.
They lived in a different time, okay? It's a
Yeah.
living document that needs to be translated for the times.
They weren't forward thinking at all, you know.
They had muskets back then. They couldn't have foreseen this.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw, but Nancy Pelosi actually came out strong in support of this policy. Have you seen this? It's pretty wild.
Separation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo. As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status for several reasons that I'd like to go into now. I'd like to call the attention of our colleagues to this chart on the status quo that the business community is asking each and every one of us to endorse today. Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996. Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal? On exports, China only allows certain industries into China, of U.S. Industries into China, and therefore only 2% of U.S. exports are allowed into China. On the other hand, the U.S. allows China to flood our markets with a third of their exports, and that'll probably go over 40%. And it's limitless because we have not placed any restriction. In terms of jobs, this is the biggest and cruelest hoax of all. Not only do we not have market access, not only do they have prohibitive tariffs, not only are our exports not let in very specifically, but China benefits with at least 10 million jobs from U.S.-China trade. The president, in his statement requesting this special waiver, said that China trade supports 170,000 jobs in the United States, 170,000 jobs, whereas our imports from China support 10 million jobs at least. Fact is that U.S.-China trade is a job loser. And one of the reasons that it is because well, first let me just make another point, and that is that our colleagues on the other side of this issue will say the trade with China, exports to China have increased 3 times in the last 10 years. They have. But they fail to mention that imports from China have increased 11 times, thereby leading to this huge trade deficit. The other issue, in addition, if intellectual property is a $2 billion,
Well, the problem, Adrian, is that's a different time.
Yeah, it's even worse now.
Look, that doesn't look like her. That's a deep fake.
That's a man.
Oh, I just imagine her just like getting back to her office, and they're like, "Hey, Nancy, somebody's on the phone for you. It's China."
Yeah.
They just
From there
offer her
on,
some cash, and
yeah. She's the one that had the Chinese chauffeur. Is that right? Do you guys remember that?
I thought that was Dianne Feinstein. Am I
Okay.
thinking
I knew it was just someone in California. For some reason, I was thinking it was Nancy, but she definitely has China connections now.
Well, and so does McConnell. And, I don't, just because there's an R by his name, I don't think he gets a pass. Oh, man, this guy, I just can't wait for this guy to go away.
Yeah.
he voted. I saw that there was a Senate vote, and this was a little bit ago, and it was like Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and a couple other rhino types that, there was like a 51 to 48 vote or something like that. Basically trying to cancel out Trump's tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And it was funny because it's like, man, these fucking assholes. But at the same time, it's like it was a symbolic vote and it didn't really matter because even if it passed the House, which it probably wouldn't, Trump could just veto it. So, but I just love watching Mitch McConnell's power wither away. But he's gonna have one last little fuck you to Trump. I know it, he's not done yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because he held up Obama's Supreme Court nominee, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking that it was Amy Coney Barrett who got let in, but that was actually, I think it was might have been somebody else, Gorsuch. But now we have Amy Coney Barrett, who's basically a turncoat liberal.
Yeah.
Maybe she's being blackmailed. I don't know what the deal is with her, but she is probably. I think it's safe to say that Amy Coney Barrett is the worst decision that Trump has made.
Yeah. Yeah. Even worse than like Comey. And that's funny because they have Coney and Comey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too bad you can't fire them. But should Clarence Thomas step down? And
man, it's hard. It's just like because he's like the most based of them all. So you don't. Are you going to get another Clarence Thomas?
Nope.
And see, here's the thing: if a Democrat nominates someone to the Supreme Court, do they ever actually flip and become a conservative? No,
never.
But you got John Roberts and Barrett, who are John Roberts, I guess, is a moderate, but he shouldn't be.
We're trying to protect the integrity of the court by being super political. That was actually kind of a Joe Biden impression. It was actually not bad.
Trying to protect the court by I'm going to nominate a black woman.
Guys, I'm going to fudge pack the court.
That's actually a good Adam Ray impression of Joe Biden.
Yep.
I'm just fucking down the court packing, FDR. Jerk off to FDR's portrait in my office every day.
True international depression.
You know what? I actually kind of miss him. I know that's so crazy to say. I don't miss him being president, but I do kind of miss him because endless content of, just hilarious gaffes and stuff. My mom is kind of like into the like Q type stuff, and she's always like, they're all gonna go to jail. They're gonna round them up, and we're gonna have military tribunals. And I'm like, Mom, they're just not going to do it for whatever reason. They won't even arrest, the people responsible for sending Stacey Abrams $2 billion for some, fraudulent NGO garbage where they were going to replace people's ovens and stoves and stuff. $2 billion went to Stacey Abrams. Like,
crazy.
There's got to be something illegal going on there. And why the hell haven't they done anything about it?
It's frustrating. Like, the only thing that, like, I wish the Q stuff would come true for sure, because it would be awesome to see a military tribunal, like, justice system come in and, like, you do something, because the public system isn't doing anything. But it could be that it's so interconnected that every case leads to another case, and you can't like tip it off too soon type of thing by making strong moves to arrest one of them, because it's all so interlinked and weird ways, like black traffic ways or black market ways. All the, shell companies being tied together. And now I don't know if you guys heard about them geofencing these rallies so that they can collect data. It's a new type of geofencing tech where they're able to monitor what cell phones basically enter this geofenced area. And they're finding, again, not only from that, but the cell phone tracking, like you can buy advertising data to track these cell phones too. And so it's connecting like 80 to 90% of these people that are showing up to protests have been showing up throughout the years, even to Kamala's stuff before this. So someone is organizing and paying for all that to happen. And I guess Elon says he has the receipts and that something will happen, but we'll see.
And it's probably those 200-year-old people on Social Security going to these rallies, you know?
Yeah,
They,
they find these
Almost.
people and they do exist, and they're like reptilian shapeshifters.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, is that that's not against the law though, huh? I mean, maybe we should start doing that.
Claiming to be that old, or what do you mean?
No. Paying protesters.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I mean, on some level, well, that's the thing is like for Trump rallies, you don't have to pay people to go to those.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
You don't need to astroturf when you have actual grass, you know.
He filled Madison Square Garden to the brim with what? Orthodox Muslims, Orthodox Jews, black lesbians, gays for Trump. I mean, he filled that whole stadium up.
It was
in
New
York City.
It was literally the most diverse Nazi rally we've ever seen.
If that's the Nazi party, I guess I'm a Nazi.
Hey-o, and with that, we've been banned. I want to talk about this measles thing because
yeah.
What are the odds that all of a sudden RFK and Trump get back in and we have a measles outbreak? Is this believable to anybody? I mean, I'm not like denying that there are cases, but I can't overlook the possibility that this shit's being overblown because it's the fucking measles and pretty much nobody dies from the measles.
Well, they're saying that someone did a kid died.
Right. Well, that was broken down, I think, by Pierre Corey, the doctor who promoted ivermectin. He basically talked that there were some medical procedures that went wrong. I think the child got antibiotics when they shouldn't have, and they didn't actually die from the measles. They just tested positive, I think, and also had received the MMR too, and that can show up as measles because you know.
Of course.
So it's all the child dying is bullshit, and
I knew it, and I didn't even need evidence. I mean, I'm a big evidence guy. I really am a skeptical person. I withhold forming conclusions without having actual evidence. But how did I just know immediately that it wasn't real?
Well, I mean, how many people have been not receiving the measles shots for ever, really? I mean, there's always been a small percentage of anti-vax or just natural humans. I hate that term because it implies that you have to be against something that is inherently unnatural. But that's been I mean, we've vaccination rates. Yeah, they've gone down since COVID for obvious reasons because people are more skeptical. But all of a sudden, it breaks out right, and I think it was Peter Hotez who said right before Trump got in, there's going to be so many issues, so many, viruses, and it's just I think there's a couple agendas in play. It's to force RFK's hand, and he's kind of capitulated by promoting the MMR, which is pretty disappointing, but he's in kind of an unwinnable position there.
Yeah.
And then I had the thought just as we were going live that I think I would not be surprised at all if a large part of this is to promote a new MMR shot. because we saw, I think we played a clip either last show that a person who had received the vaccine actually was the person that got measles and was infectious.
Mhm.
And so that's promoting that the shot itself isn't 100%. And do you remember a couple of years ago when they were all of a sudden promoting RSV?
Yeah.
Like this thing that had been around for a while, and then all of a sudden is RSV hysteria. It's a new pandemic.
Mhm.
And then what happened? Literally, not even a year after that, they released an RSV shot.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so I guarantee you, write it in the book right now. If we have a book, but write it in that book over there behind you there, Tyler. One of those books, just in a random page.
The Bible.
The Bible. I don't know if you want to sully
There's
that.
a notes section.
New MMR shot by 4/10/2026. But they want to change all of the vaccines to mRNA. There's a push to do every single shot as an mRNA. Why? I have no idea what their actual goal is with that, other than to kill us. But I mean, that's almost too easy. But at the same time, I think not going to that level of conspiracy, it's also just to sell a new product. And who better to sell it to than the people who are all bought in? So if you get this measles hysteria, you get to hate the anti-vax, discredit Trump and RFK, and you get to sell a new shot to all the people who are lining up for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's just the perverse incentives for pharmaceutical companies is just too much to bear. I mean, there's perverse incentives to keep people sick, first of all, and then second of all, there's, perverse incentives to manufacture viruses and, have accidental leakages, have accidental lab leaks, accidental pandemics. Like the perverse incentives are just, I mean, I don't think anybody can have the type of credibility and trust to have those types of perverse incentives, let alone, a pharmaceutical company. And I just am so disappointed in the left for abandoning this issue. It's I feel like I'm taking crazy pills that I am always rallying against, a multinational $1 trillion industry that has perverse incentives, that's known to lie to us, and also has their hands in our politics and also pretty much funds all of our propaganda. Why? I mean, everything that the left believes now is essentially propaganda talking points that are funded by pharmaceutical industry. So I'm just so disappointed in the left, and I want you guys to wake up. Just wake up, man.
Yeah. That, like, with all the news shows, their ads in between is Pfizer and everything. So advertising, not only their new measles product, but like their own company as like a trusted source or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and then you guys remember that clip on Colbert where it's like a bunch of dancing syringes.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I can't believe that anyone buys it. There has to be something in the water. There has to be something in the vaccines that makes you support vaccines. There has to be some sort of demonic spell casting going on in order for people to be so stupid to think that these people aren't lying to you. And then there's that meme of like, the media funds your fear or fuels your fear, and your fear fuels your disease, and your disease fuels big pharma, and big pharma fuels the media, which fuels your fear, which fuels your disease. It's a giant cycle, satanic cycle.
I just came up with a new bumper sticker for our shop.
Mm-hmm.
I am vaccine and herd. And herd is spelled HERD.
Yes, nice.
Because there is something in that word that does cast a spell. It's like vaccine.
Vaccine. Vaccinated. Vaxxed, waxed, and ready to relax. Ugh. I'm going to have to take a break.
Well, we need a palate cleanser here.
Yep, go for it.
Trump is going to fix the U.S. debt with this.
For $5 million, this could be yours. $5 million. For $5 million, this could be yours.
It's gonna fix it.
Oh, Trump is the best. He is so funny.
I think the rest of our political lives will be defined by Trump.
Yeah, absolutely.
People will be talking about him for the end of time. Every other president, Obama, Clinton, Bush, it's no one will have the staying power, whether you love him or hate him. Until the day people die, they will be talking about Trump.
Yeah.
We can never have another Trump, or we need another Trump.
Yeah. He's changing the shape of what a politician could be and should be. And, like he's, regardless of if you like what he does, he's doing what he said he was going to do so far. And to whatever extent he can, like obviously the war is still going on, but
yeah, that's, I mean, what other disappointment? Maybe less deportations than promised. But at least the border is pretty much shut down. I mean, it's like 95% reduction in illegal crossings. But you're right. I mean, our politics is pretty much just, forever changed. And it's funny when the left tries to kind of mimic him, and they don't know how to attack him either. He's just Teflon Don. It's just like, no matter what they do, he gets stronger. Like, it's just like everything they try, it just doesn't work. Teflon Don, man. Yeah, I had something else I was going to say, but even CNN was admitting that he's delivering. Say whatever you want about him, he's delivering on his promises. 111 executive orders or executive actions. I don't know what the difference is there, but 111. That's basically the world record. I think that's more than Biden did in his whole 4 years. I'm predicting we're going to get 5,000 executive orders by the time Trump is done.
Well, it's interesting. I just saw an article that said in Colorado, or maybe it's Denver Public Schools, said they're going to just ignore the DEI requirement to get rid of DEI in public schools. They're just not going to follow it, which I thought was interesting because all throughout COVID during the vax mandates that were an executive order, I was told that people had to follow these, but now you don't have to follow them. It's interesting logic, but I think it's kind of setting up a constitutional crisis where people will challenge that as what does this mean? I think they're probably trying to delegitimize the ability to make those orders mean anything. Because that's happening in a lot of states. I think Oregon's doing the same thing, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the force of law enacted to get rid of these terrible policies. It's just it's an interesting dynamic that's in play right now.
Well, I'm wondering why. I know Vivek Ramaswamy was always saying that you could get rid of affirmative action just by rescinding the executive order, and it's weird that Trump hasn't done that.
Wasn't it overturned in the Supreme Court though?
Oh, but affirmative action and
maybe that was just in college
university
admissions.
Yeah. So, but I want Trump to sign 50,000 executive orders, so that way, like it'll take them more time. It'll take them at least a couple of months to get rid of him.
Can he write an executive order that says you can't undo this executive order?
That's why he needs Congress. Oh yeah, another piece of news is that the House has passed the reconciliation bill, which includes the tax cuts,
Oh, nice. I
which
didn't hear
is
that. Oh.
really good news. And it also means that Johnson is actually doing his job, and actually going through with some of the stuff that, because everybody said Johnson is a rhino or wasn't going to go through with it or whatever, especially when he was on the plane with RFK Jr. and Elon and Trump, and he's all in the back, like he's just like sticking out like a sore thumb, like. And I told everybody was freaking out about Johnson. He's a traitor. He's a rhino. Why is he in the inner circle? He's next to Trump. He's going to betray Trump. Look at Trump's making the same mistake as he made before. Oh, he's going to hire people that are going to stab him in the back and turn on him. We can't afford to have this rhino. We need Thomas Massey or something like that. It's like, Thomas Massey is not going to be the speaker. You guys, can you please stop? But Johnson is doing his job. I'm pretty sure it's going to pass the Senate. I think they just need that 51 or 50 plus Vance. So that's a really, really good thing. That's lasting change. And they need to try and do as much as they can to actually pass more legislation. I know they wanted to put as much as possible into this reconciliation bill. I do want to like look at it and maybe plug it into AI or ask AI give me like a breakdown of what's in the bill, because I generally am against like pork bills, but I mean, I'm just kind of in the mood of do to them what they've been doing to us.
I think that's really the only answer at this point. If you're going to use the levers of power, if you don't have the line item veto ability, then I mean, for better or worse, if you can get something good at this point, it's better than nothing, because we know that the Democrats will do the same thing and not give us anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to know if it includes the no tax on overtime and
I think it
tips,
does.
because that would impact me personally.
I think it does. I think it will include no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and I think no tax on Social Security as well.
That's great.
So I'll look that up. For some reason, my Grok isn't working.
Well,
So
as we know, all of the issues are clearly tax cuts for the rich. So, because we know how much overtime and tips that they get.
Yeah, it's definitely focused on the rich with that one. Jeez.
But that's good though, because it's kind of, it's important for Trump's legacy to establish some lasting change, to enact some actual lasting change, and that means like passing legislation. And Biden, for better or worse, will, he actually did pass some legislation, whether that was, I don't know if the CHIPS Act was under him, but he also did the infrastructure bill, and he had another bill, a big bill too, that they passed as well. So, which probably did unimaginable damage to our country. But, you can't just rely on these EOs. It's got to be some sort of legislation. And Trump is basically laying out the game plan of like, here's the legislation I want you to pass. So just do it. But we got too many snakes in the grass to really do that much with Congress, which I think the founders, an argument could be made that the founders did that on purpose to get checks and balances, to make it difficult for the government to actually do stuff. But the problem is it only goes one freaking way. And I'm so tired of the Republicans just thinking, well, we can't use our power against them because then they'll do it to us. And it's like, they've been doing this to us for years and years, decades and decades. They have no shame. They have no shame. You're going to sit there and wait for the Democrats or, the progressives or whatever, or the establishment to have, a moral code. I'm not holding my breath.
Nope, we got to use rules for radicals. Just paint them into a corner.
Yeah, exactly. And accuse them of doing accuse them of doing what we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
What are some of the other rules?
We could ask Grok here.
Yeah, I know my damn Grok isn't working right now. If anybody else has the Grok up.
Yeah, let me see here. What are the rules for radicals? Saul Alinsky.
Alinsky.
All right, let's see. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Perception matters. Amplify your strength, even if it's limited. It seems like Trump's doing that. Bluffing and optics can shift the narrative. 2, never go outside the expertise of your people. Stick to what your group knows and can handle. 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Force opponents into unfamiliar situations where they're uncomfortable or unprepared. Yeah, I can see that. Make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. We've seen that with turning the woke around on people, turning around the pro-choice argument. A good tactic is one your people enjoy. Well, we've seen the White House post some things about deportations that are, you take what you will, a little schadenfreude, but a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Well, we've been bouncing around a lot, haven't we?
Oh, wow.
Keep the pressure on. Never let up. Fight, fight, fight. I added that in there.
I was going to say it says that.
He knew! The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. The fear of what might happen can be more effective than the action itself. Leverage
COVID.
uncertainty.
COVID. What was that rule? That it was like the threat is usually not as bad as what is it? What was that?
The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself.
Yeah. COVID.
Well, that could apply. I'm seeing all this and seeing it through the lens like Trump is using this playbook.
Oh, totally. The threat of tariffs. Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Don't just tear down. Offer a solution. Offer a solution. Without one, you risk looking like the problem. So we're going to build here. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, polarize it. Focus on a specific person, the enemy within, I said that before I read the next part of it, or entity as the enemy. Isolate them, frame the conflict starkly to rally support. And finally, the major premise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. Relentless coordinated efforts wear down resistance, force reactions that play to your advantage. This Trump Alinsky is what we'll call
it. Yes, I love it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Roger Stone was like influencing Trump in this way and like, dude, use this playbook, man. It works. Just use it. And
yeah.
Everything that I'm seeing Trump is kind of using this playbook.
Yeah. Have you ever read this book, or do you know what this book is?
No.
The 48 Laws of Power. Mm-mm. So it's 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And he just basically studies like, things like the art of war or Machiavelli. And he breaks it down like all these different rules, laws of power. And it reminds me of that, rules for radicals. It's just getting real about the reality of power. And, like the Republicans or the conservatives never wanted to use their authority that had been justly given to them by a democratic system. They don't want to use that power because they don't want that power being used against them. All the while the power is being used against them. But like, for example, in 48 Laws of Power, he talks about, I have a feeling like Trump does all of these 48 Laws of Power One of them is like always say less than is necessary. Another one is like never outshine the master, like stuff like that. And he'll give in each rule, he'll give kind of like a historical breakdown how the rule was ignored or how the rule was applied. But it's super interesting. In the foreword, he says, a lot of people don't like this book because it seems like amoral. It seems like like a sociopath could get a hold of this book and really kind of do some damage. And he said, well, the thing is that power exists and you are in that game of power, and whether or not you like it. And so the problem is if you ignore the game of power, if you ignore, say like the video game that you're in, and you're not playing, if you don't know the rules of the video game, then you're going to lose that video game. And so these are basically, it just reminds me of that like Saul Alinsky rules for radicals, where it's like, these are kind of the rules of politics or strategies that you could use, and you ignore them at your own peril because other people are going to use them, and they probably will use them against you unless you know them.
Which is why, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so check out 48 Laws of Power, sponsors this podcast. No, but go ahead. Sorry.
That's why Pam Bondi and Kash Patel need to go hard on all of these things that we're talking about with holding people accountable and use the power to the full extent, because Lord knows what will happen if/when the Democrats get back into power, because they will be unleashed like you haven't seen it, even though Trump has been, he's been disruptive and he says a lot of things that upset people, but in terms of using the power, still a lot to be used that hasn't been used.
Oh, totally. 100%. They need to ramp up even more.
Especially,
and they're paying attention to, or they're trying to like stop violent crime and stop drugs and stuff like that. And they're doing a good job doing that. But the problem is that those, the lower level crime isn't what threatens an entire nation, on a more existential level. Like, they need to actually find the fraudsters, like Doge needs to actually we need justice is kind of what I'm saying. And I get a little bit frustrated every day thinking we haven't had enough justice. I'm glad that the face tattooed Satanist gangsters are being deported to El Salvador and set straight. I think Nayib Bukele is actually just walking through the halls of the prison, just reading Bible verses and saving their souls and stuff like that. But we need more. We need way more.
Yeah, like if it's actual treason, then that could be a reason for military to get involved as well. So I'm still holding my breath that is something that would happen, but we just have to wait and see.
Oh, new bumper sticker. Treason is the reason.
For the season.
For the season
of military
of reveal.
Yes.
What would be an argument against actually enacting justice in that way? Just the only thing I could think of is just like optics. Like, it looks bad if we're arresting our, political rivals or something like that. Like, I think that's why Trump never really went after Hillary, because that does set a certain precedent. But it's like they've been going after Trump, for the past 4 years, trying to put him in jail and pretty much trying to kill him. Mm-hmm. So,
they've set the precedent now. So hopefully he will kind of mirror that. But
well, yeah, the issue is that he said we're going to end the weaponization of politics to some extent. But at the same time, it's not necessarily weaponizing people if they've committed crimes, like actual crimes, not like this mislabeled a payment to somebody and 34 times it's a felony kind of thing that he saw. Like, but it is all about optics. So, how is it going to play in that way? But at the same time, here's another thing. And conservatives, the right often gets caught up in saying like, well, we don't want to look like hypocrites. We don't want to betray these values by doing this. Like, we're constitutionalists, or we believe in this. And it's like, well, you're ignoring the fact that, again, the other side doesn't give a shit about any of that.
Yeah.
So it's, as we've said, it's all about power. And if you want to utilize that power for your benefit, for what you want, you can't just think of, oh, I'm not being consistent. Like, that's out the window, unfortunately. It is what it is.
Well, and the power is always going to be there too. That's one thing that I've, over the past 5 years of like studying politics, and like, the power is always going to be there. The libertarians and the anarchists, and the even the constitutional limited government conservatives, they keep like holding on to this utopian pipe dream vision of, we're going to shrink the government, we're going to like actually destroy the government, like we actually don't need the government. You can't shrink the power. It's going to be there, and someone's going to take it. And so good people need to stand up and actually take it. The only problem is there's a paradox, is the people really that just want to be left alone, don't they allow, just by being left alone and keeping to themselves, it allows the people, the sociopaths and the totalitarian Karens, to rise up and take that power with pretty much general ease. So I think just being realistic about that power, and we just need to control it. And I think the Christians really need to wake up. And I think, to be honest, and this might be harsh for the Christians, but I'm going to just tell them like it is. A big part of the reason why we're in this mess is because of the church lost its spine and allowed the liberals to control everything. And we were just too tolerant, really. The Christians and the church generally was too tolerant. So grow a fucking spine.
Yeah, I mean, that's how any sort of evil or like negative thing spreads, is through tolerating its presence.
All it takes for what's that? All it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, basically. And so we need to, which I've been pleasantly surprised that a new generation of conservatives, or constitutional conservatives and Christian conservatives, have been rising up and realizing that this reality, that the power is there and we need to control it. And so people are actually some decent people are running for office. But it's the people that don't want the power are the people that probably should have the power, but they don't seek the power. So we're stuck in a situation where the sociopaths are willing to go the route of public service, and subjugating the other 49, the 51%, subjugating the other 49. I mean, that's really where we're at. But I think we're, like I said, I've been pretty white pilled lately, so it looks like we're going in the right direction.
I don't know why you'd be picking on the Christians. I mean, you have preachers like this.
God is gay. God is a lesbian. God is trans. God is gender non-binary. God is straight. God is cisgender. God is black. God is white. God is Middle Eastern. God is Asian. God is differently abled mentally and physically. God is able-bodied. God is you, and you are God.
Oh, burn him at the stake.
You are God.
You are God is the original lie from the snake in the garden. Damn it. Satanists dressing up like pastors.
He just didn't finish the sentence. You are God's creation. He just forgot that little creation part.
Honest mistake.
Yeah,
I'm about ready. After that clip, I'm about ready to start a new crusades. So get ready, bitches.
Well, I mean, if you if you want to start a crusade, I've got some fuel for you here.
Uh-oh.
This is a new dog show.
Oh my god. How so smart. So smart.
How did he do it? Oh.
God. Oh, okay. It's gonna take me a while to get that out of my fucking head. Thank you, Adrian.
Give it a year and that the dog character will be naked and have like natural fur, and you have to let them exist as their true form.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a homeless guy pooping on the street the other day, but I mean, it could have just been a dog.
Yeah.
Hey, clean up after your dog, asshole.
Mhm. You assumed his species. How could you?
Liberalism. I mean, you know, I'm kind of tired of the conservatives or people on the right, especially kind of more like neocon type Republicans that are just like, we're the real liberals, you know, and there is some merit to that, you know, like I do actually consider myself a liberal. I'm way too tolerant and way too liberal with things, but you know, it's just there is a certain inherent problem, it seems like, with liberalism, and it just leads to licentiousness without some sort of higher moral system, you know. So I think this was always an inevitability. But I guess the question is, I like to say that I err on the side of liberty in a lot of situations, and so when you maximize liberty, you will get a certain amount of licentiousness, and maybe the liberty outweighs the you know, the sin and vice. So I mean, and I think St. Thomas Aquinas goes into this, which I want to. That's going to be one of my next research dives, is into Aquinas, and when I figure out what he has some wise things to say about that. So, like for example, he's famously pro prostitution, not necessarily pro prostitution, but um, anti laws against prostitution. So, which is pretty interesting from one of the most like devout Catholic theologians, pretty much in history. So I'm going to do a dive in on that, and I'll report back with some Thomistic philosophy on liberty.
Nice. Yeah, it's like the liberal path, I said before, opens the door for, you know, like negative influences to come in, do that. You just don't have that wall up when, if you were like a devout Christian, you have a lot more walls up to from that influence. And like each person I lean towards being liberal and let each person do their thing, because each person has to out in their own
Yeah.
journey, you know. So it's like anything, but at the same, if it's going to on an over culture that is going to devour like then you have to boundaries, and that's hard to figure out sometimes.
Yeah, there's got to be a limit. I mean, I think all three of us are pretty much liberals, at least recovering liberals, but also, you know, still having liberal tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
But but there has to be a limit. That's life. But you become a conservative the second you start thinking about limiting principles. What do you think, Adrian? Are you liberal?
Yeah, that's a hard. I don't identify. I don't identify with. I would say I'm non-binary.
Non-binary politically.
I don't like the word conservative generally to define
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
What am I conserving at this point? The liberal world order? I don't know. So I struggle with that. to be honest.
Yeah.
So you're
But-
a progressive. Okay.
I'm a regressive.
Well, if you're not conservative, then, you know.
What are you?
Well, I know I understand the hesitation with labels and stuff too. I would call myself conservative for sure, no problem. But I don't think those two terms are are mutually exclusive. I don't think they're direct opposites. Liberal and conservative. That's just kind of like the terms that we use
Mhm.
nowadays, and I think I've kind of relegated to just calling them libs, or libtards, or shit libs, or just the liberals. I think it's kind of for lack of a better term. I think progressives is another good one to use. Psychotic, insane, totalitarian Karens is another label that I like to use.
I think the honestly the best aspect of modern liberalism is unintentional comedy.
So, what do you think this is?
I think that it's a slave bracelet. I would like to think that my relatives helped to free the slaves, and that was one of the ones that they freed, or maybe they found. I think that this is the name of the slave holder and then the name of the slave underneath it. Am I
Okay.
right?
It's a dog collar.
Oh my god.
That's what I get out of modern liberalism.
Mhm.
It's a mental disease. Oh my god.
Slavery.
I think the establishment, or the powers that be, whoever they may be, they definitely are. It seems like they're hell bent in turning our country into a damn insane asylum, and it seems like the inmates are running the asylum at this point, and we're all just forced to basically be neighbors with these people. I
Mhm.
mean, me in California, Adrian, what you're in Colorado's like that. I mean, it's almost unbearable at this point. Do you think that Colorado or even California has a path to redemption?
Well, we do. I think the vast majority of voting is done by mail-in ballots. So I have my doubts.
Yeah.
I to be honest with you, at this point, and this shows you how black-pilled I am about Colorado, I think California has a better chance.
Oh, dang. Oof.
Because if you look at the last election, we're one of the only places that went more blue. California went more red.
Wow.
Yeah, demographically,
Oh,
I mean, you got everyone that moved to Colorado recently. I would wager 70% of them are on the left, and then you have people fleeing Colorado who are leaning more right because they see what's going on. And I think because there's not as many people here, those shifts can be more dramatic than in California in some ways. California is a huge state population wise. I still don't have a lot of hope for California either. But Colorado, I don't know if you guys saw this. They passed, I think, in the House or Senate.
God, what did they pass?
That if you misgender your child, CPS can take them. And I guess the governor is going to sign like the most restrictive gun law in the country that they had passed. Like I just read that right before we got on. So
I'm feeling enraged. I can't say what I want to say right now.
I love this state, but I am very I don't know, disaffected with the current state of things. I think rural areas will have more potential to at least try to push back as much as they can. I think that's true anywhere, but on a statewide level, man, I don't know, man. What's going to turn it around? I mean, you see a lot of crazy protests in Denver, and they could be astroturfed for sure to a large extent, but the general vibe I get here is that, especially what blackpilled me really was during COVID, where it was like, no, there was barely any pushback. We went to a protest early on. There was probably 15 people there in Denver against COVID stuff. There was
against lockdowns.
Yeah, but I think it was when the vax mandate had hit,
Oh,
and passports and stuff like that. Just within our own social circle, there is like no acknowledgement whatsoever that any of that stuff happened, which was pretty depressing.
No acknowledgement that it happened, or no acknowledgement that it was maybe bad.
Yeah, that it was bad because we couldn't go to any shows with them, and that didn't seem to matter. So there's been no acknowledgement. So like when I see the outrage over things, pretty much that I will say, tariffs affect everybody, but like the abortion stuff, like Colorado is like, you can abort a live baby, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you haven't lost that right. You're pissed off over what?
No, they're mad at people in Texas. Women in Texas have lost their rights.
Right. And it goes to that classic heat map where people on the left care more about people that they don't even know versus people that are literally in their lives every day.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to care about that at all for some reason. Like, it's more moral to care about a stranger than it is to care about your own friends and family. But I'm not trying to be all of a downer here, but I'm just very...
Hey, I asked the question, and you answered it.
Very cynical, unfortunately.
I think being real and about the situation is important, and that's the reality.
You need to move to, like you said, a rural spot where it's uncomfortable, and you can at least have a pocket of sanity. And that's definitely, I'm in Southwest Colorado, and it's like hardly any of that stuff happens to where it's like affecting my life anymore. It's still happens a little bit here and there, but protests and whatnot, but there's just as much of like a Trump truck train that would happen on top of that. So it's an interesting mix, but it just, in smaller towns, obviously it's not going to infringe on you as much.
When I worked at the Humane Society in Pagosa Springs, I'd say it's a pretty conservative area, but the Humane Society themselves are pretty liberal people. It's a nonprofit. It's, liberals tend to care more about cats and dogs than they do about human beings. And my manager boss guy over there, I was in charge of marketing and stuff like that, and actually like public outreach, doing email campaigns and like press releases and stuff like that. And he had a really hard time allowing me to do my job, and he was micromanaging me. And every single time he was micromanaging me, he would say, "Look, you don't understand this community like I do. They're very old school, if you know what I mean." And he used to talk about them with such disdain, and because they're old school, they're Christians, they're conservative, and maybe even voted for Trump. And he had this underlying disdain for them. And it really disgusted me, because I'm like, these are the people that are keeping your nonprofit afloat. These are people who are donating their money so you can, pursue your own little LARP of justice for animals and stuff like that. And I just couldn't do it with that guy. There were other reasons too. And it just reminded me, he was definitely a lib. He was from Los Angeles. And he was coming up into there, and I was thinking, man, I am one of these people. I know how to talk to them. It's you that doesn't know how to talk to them. And how can you talk to somebody or reach out to people properly if you secretly hate them?
Oh man, I wasn't gonna play this, but since you brought this up,
It's like loaded with 100 clips.
Hit me.
It's literally exactly what you were saying. It's so crazy.
Found out today that somebody that I work with is a conservative, and he's somebody who's really intelligent, and he's somebody who works in climate tech as a super smart guy, somebody I would never have thought was conservative, and apparently he is. And it's surprising and it's disgusting, but what's most surprising to me is the level of sudden hatred that I have for him. Sudden hatred for this man who I used to respect suddenly just went boop, and I hate him now.
Oh god.
Immediately.
How do you deal with that if somebody hates you and you don't hate them, but they still want to hurt you? Like, you have to protect yourself against that type of thing. And they really kind of woke up a sleeping giant, I think, when it comes to people that really wanted to be left alone. I think a lot of people that wanted to be left alone are like kind of realizing, especially after COVID, like they are going to infringe, they are going to impose, they are going to restrict you, you know. And it really pisses me off because it comes from people who are secular humanists who say, stop shoving your religion down my throat, you can't legislate morality. And I'm like, you guys, like, you're literally doing that. Like, you're doing the human experience really comes down to, for these people especially, is like becoming the thing that you hate, you know, and not even knowing that you did. You know, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And these people are, you know, that's what's happening.
Yeah, and you know, I still don't think like the sane response is just to like outright hate them and come back with that vitriol, obviously.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't do you any good, you know, like to
That's
just
right.
hold hate in your heart. But at the same time, you have to, if somebody, the classic quote is, if somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
If somebody says, I want you dead, I hate you, then you don't just say, well, we can get along, or, you know, maybe we can come to a middle ground where you kill me, but it's in a way that's a little bit more humane. You know, you don't, a less painful death. Yeah, that's the moderate position here.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, and it brings up a point, like, is being a moderate kind of dead in this culture? Because how do you moderate between these two positions, you know? And I'm not saying that you have to go all the way one way or the other, but in the same sense, it's like there are clear sides drawn, like standing in the middle just is almost an impossible position. I think that's why you saw a lot of libertarians come out in support of Trump, because it was like, well, I'm not saying I agree with him on a lot of things, but the alternative is insane. And so I'm going to no longer be that guy that stands on the sidelines. And that was exactly where I was at, where if somebody is saying, I don't want you to participate in society, I don't want you to be able to get a job to feed yourself, I'm fine with you being homeless, not receiving any benefits. What's the proper reaction to that? You know, and there's still this attitude that, like, how could you vote for that man? It's like, because you wanted me dead. Is it that hard to understand?
And everything you say about him isn't true.
Yeah, well, there's that. But like, oh, I mean, geez, I know, but yeah, but what? Did you expect me to not react like with an instinct of, this is my survival on the line to some extent?
No, I actually, I want you to not take vaccines. I want you to drink as much raw milk as you can get.
Well, thanks.
Thank you for telling me that you want me dead.
Well, see, and that belies the point. Like, okay, let's lean into that position. Maybe we should have fake protests that say we should allow these people to not get vaccines because we want them dead, right? So, like, let's just do a pro kill those people campaign, but let them do it themselves, and then we get freedom as a result.
Well, I guess I actually, in my soul, I start to think, okay, how much can you actually blame them because they're being manipulated, you know, by expert propagandists and possibly, you know, caught in a demonic trance or something? Do you know, I feel bad for them. I feel sorry for them. You know, I don't hate them the way that they probably hate me, you know. So how much can you really blame them? I mean, some of them are really diehard true believers, but some of them are just caught in the propaganda and caught in the trance.
Yeah, I think that's where compassion comes in to a certain extent, where you're, I'm not gonna just, I'm not gonna like say like, well, I want you dead. I'm not gonna believe that, because I don't think that's, yeah, they're not. It is a fine line though, in terms of saying like, well, I'm still gonna love you, but I'm not gonna allow you to influence my children. I'm not gonna allow you to have control over my life, and as a result, I'm gonna enact power that may secure that ability. And even if you don't like it, it's a defensive position, but I'm gonna take it. And maybe I'm gonna keep one eye open constantly if I happen to be friends with you, or you're a family member, to where it's like, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna hate you, but I'm also not gonna believe that you're totally on my side, because I know you're not. So
Yeah, it's a hard, like, gray area to figure out, and you have to figure it out with almost every individual, like where those boundaries are going to be. But it's like reminds me of what helped me figure out like how to love someone but not um allow them to step into your life and like start to manipulate you or do whatever. It's you can divide it up with acceptance as the love, like you can accept who they are, what they are, which is the love part, and then you use wisdom, which is using action or vocalizing your position and your boundaries, and if it comes down to it, then physically protecting yourself. And that's where you don't allow them to pretty much infringe to the point of, you know, toxifying your like spirit or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, I love that phrase of like holding a grudge is, you know, like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die kind of thing, you know. It's like you said, Adrian, that's actually damaging to you, you know, and it's damaging to them, that hatred. And I wish there was more that I could do to help them realize that. I mean, it's hurting you. You know, you got to love your neighbors, like even if they hate you. And I think, and that's the reason, one of the reasons why I love Jesus so much is because he sets impossible standards, and I would expect a divine teacher to set impossible standards. For example, he says, "You've heard it said that you know, you shouldn't commit adultery, but I actually say you can't even have lustful thoughts about another woman." Not he takes the standard and then amplifies it to where it's like literally an impossible standard. Another impossible standard that he has is love thine enemies and pray for those who persecute you. You know, that's a very unique message in the world of spiritual, you know, in the world of religion. You know, Islam is more about dominate your neighbors, and if they don't convert, cast them out, and if they deconvert, kill them. You know, so anyway, I think that I'm just gonna have to pray for these liberals, these Democrats who are caught in this trance.
Yeah.
It luckily enough have woken up to where we're actually winning elections. You know, it's been amazing to see all the people kind of shift. so many people who were like, I was a diehard Democrat and I got red pilled. It's amazing. But
yeah. One of the best things I think anyone can do is just be the best example they can be when interacting with different cultures and different people that are just brainwashed in all kinds of different ways. Like it's not just liberalism that is brainwashed in our societies. There's
true.
so many channels that people have been kind of tuned into that are kind of toxic or just kind of perverted or like off kilter from reality.
That's
So
true.
you just have to normalize being like some sort of moderate somehow.
Yeah, like you said, lead by example. People will notice. I mean, not all of them, but some people will notice, like, hey, you know what? He's somewhat happy, somewhat well adjusted, or somewhat successful, or not always angry. I have a couple of diehard Democrats in my family. My sister and my grandma are diehards. I mean, they like go to the protests and stuff like that. And they despise the other half of the family, and they're always angry. And I just wish that they could realize that anger is stopping them from being successful. It's stopping them from living a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to remember that hate can have negative consequences, even on your physical health.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we be aware of that.
Make yourself comfortable. There's a
I was thinking it was satire the whole time. That's not satire.
No, that's from a real show.
Wow.
I think your son's tumor was caused by racism.
Specifically from Billy at school.
But I mean, in all seriousness, though, I think the people with TDS. That's you see those people at the protests, and they are like, that can't be good for your physical health, And yeah, during COVID, during Biden, there were a lot of policies that stressed me the fuck out for obvious reasons, because it directly impacted my life. I'm going to feel that way.
Me too.
But at a certain point, I didn't wake up every day. I never really had the Biden derangement syndrome, maybe because he was so demented that it was hard to have that Emmanuel Goldstein reaction to Biden specifically. Fauci, on the other hand, maybe you could say I have some FDS, but for logical reasons. But at the same time, it was never like, I never had that reaction of like, I want him dead. Like that is doing some damage to people's bodies. Man.
That's kind of why I was like, I kind of miss old Uncle Joe, because he wasn't the mastermind behind it or anything like that. Like I think he's a crooked
he's
piece
not
of
a good
shit.
guy.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, like, I agree with you. Like, I have a similar experience. Like, I mean, I don't want Biden to die. I mean, if he dies, then Kamala's president. It's like, he's not running the show anyway. It's the people behind him. It's the Rahm Emanuels. It's the Ron Klains. It's the it's Obama. It's the Obama regime still running the show. And I don't even know how much Obama. I'm starting to wonder how much Obama was even really in control.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever know, to be honest, who was actually pushing that auto pen button.
Well, I love Trump. He says, actually, some of these executive orders or whatever, or these, actions are, they're actually going to just get rid of them. What was it? He said, I don't think we could. Oh, it was the pardons.
Yep.
Yeah, he said these pardons aren't legitimate because it was signed with an auto pen. I wonder what a court or judge would say about that.
Well, I hope it gets brought in front of a judge so that at least, I mean, that could be Trump's ultimate goal, is just to say, like, he couldn't stand trial for keeping classified documents because he was he was not mentally fit to stand trial, according to the investigation. So how can he be mentally fit to do any of these things if that was the reasoning?
Well, and whoever was, I think they're kind of investigating now who was, if you're going along with that, you're kind of committing treason in a way. Or, I mean, I don't know.
Military tribunals. Come on.
I want military tribunals. I want the war in Ukraine to end. And I want, I want that vaccine schedule gone.
I want that mRNA vaccine for racism cancer. But that doesn't mean I'm racist. I don't need a vaccine for something that I'm not, but I'll take it in case. I'm so anti-racist.
I'm feeling a little racist, guys. I need a booster.
Whites only.
Well, Trump is president, so I actually do hate the deep state, the establishment, and the uniparty more than I like Trump. I hate them more than I like Trump. I hate the government more than I like Trump. And that's why I like Trump, is because he's essentially a weapon that I am using to do damage to the government, the uniparty, the establishment, the deep state, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. It's weird that the other side doesn't see that as a positive. Like, they want the system to stay in place that's been just like free overbearing since we've been born into it, It's pretty.
Well, I feel like the hatred for Trump is a good argument to shrink the government. So, I mean, could we? I mean, if I was a liberal, I'd be like, actually, they were right. We need to shrink this government because one man could get in control. And
do what?
Take away people's rights.
Right now.
Yeah.
There's that rules for radicals kicking into gear.
Oh yeah.
Getting what we want.
Oh yeah, rules for radicals. Saul Alinsky never saw Trump coming. Is he still alive?
Sucka. I think he's dead.
Ah, bummer. So who's running next? Who's going to be on that primary stage for the Democrats? I have my opinions, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, you got Newsom, you got AOC, Jasmine Crockett will be.
Oh yeah, my girl.
Just to be. I think actually this is my take on Jasmine Crockett. I think she's in there to make AOC look smart. Because it's almost like that. What is it? The Overton window. Well, AOC doesn't look that bad compared to this crazy lady. Go ahead.
It's Hillary Harris.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, Hillary can run again. She could run again. Okay, so I think Cory Booker's for sure going to be on the stage. I think. What about Hakeem Jeffries? Probably be on that stage. What about like somebody like Josh Shapiro?
Yeah.
Probably be on that stage as well. Who would you, in an ideal world, who would you want to see as a candidate for the Democratic side? Is there any sane ones? I mean, like a Joe Manchin or something like that.
Oh,
I mean, who's the ideal opponent? I guess, like who's easy to beat, or if they were to win, I mean, I almost feel like I'd rather have AOC than Newsom.
Oh yeah, AOC would be preferable to Newsom.
Bernie and AOC would be a entertaining one.
They're pushing hard.
Yeah,
I think Bernie's too old at this point. I don't think it'll be him.
Yeah, I think he's trying to pass the mantle to the old occasional Cortex.
Occasional. Yeah, dude, I mean, that's the thing. Going back to the earlier point, there are no moderate Democrats left. Joe Manchin left.
Kirsten Sinema, they pushed her out. They pushed out Nicole Shanahan and Bobby.
Fetterman. Yeah, Fetterman's the only one.
Fetterman would be great.
It takes
Fetterman's.
a stroke to make you a moderate in the Democratic
I
Party.
actually kind of like him. I don't know.
You know, but when you look at how he votes, he kind of just virtue signals and says like, "Well, I'm talking to RFK. I think we should talk. I talked to Elon."
I went to
And-
Mar-a-Lago.
And then he didn't vote for. I don't think he really voted for any of the nominees, really, other than Rubio. So,
Yeah.
but it's kind of an act
Yeah.
on Fetterman's part. So I don't
There's
think
a lane. There's a lane for Fetterman, guys.
Mhm.
He's gonna waddle through it.
Oh man. Well,
Dude, there ain't nobody.
the future's looking bright. I mean, but they're still going. They're gonna win. I think they're gonna win the midterms. Unfortunately,
Most likely. Well, that whole Wisconsin election was pretty much to redistrict and give 2 more seats to the Dems. So most likely they will. They'll probably impeach Trump again, but it's not going to get a. It's not. It's just going to be.
he's not going to get convicted. In the
No,
Senate,
he's
so it
never.
doesn't
He's never going to
matter.
get convicted by the Senate. It's not going to happen. So,
If Trump rewrites the rules to do 3 terms, then Obama, Trump, 28.
dude,
They run together.
Oh dang!
Flip the script now, because they went golfing, guys.
That's a Shyamalan twist. Did they go? What? They went golfing?
Yeah. Well,
No.
I mean, this is the rumor that. So they were, buddy at that funeral, and so they had AI, a couple AIs reconstruct and lip read basically what they
were
said.
saying. Yeah.
And Trump invites him to golf the next day, and I'm pretty sure I saw a report that he did go do it. But
Well, I wonder if Obama was just the face, kind of like Biden was.
right, and
Maybe
now
Michelle
he's
was the
pissed.
mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, what if Michelle runs?
well, she was the top in that relationship.
Hey now, Adrian, come on. We're conservatives over here. We don't make those kinds of jokes.
I didn't say.
But for real
that.
though, she's a man, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm waiting for Candace Owens to let me know for sure.
She's got the dirt.
Michelle Brigitte, 2028. Let's go.
Who's a? I love speculating about this type of stuff. Who? Maybe. What about like a Mark Cuban?
Oh God,
Another billionaire.
Well, I think the dark horse
Bill Gates. Sorry.
candidate that I've seen being pushed right now is you guys know Stephen A. Smith, the ESPN commentator.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He's like he just kind of runs his mouth. He's just like bombastic.
Occasionally says some sane things.
Occasionally, he's kind of like Bill Maher in that way, but he's low key hinted at running, which would be funny. I mean, it's silly because the dude's just on ESPN talking sports. But then again, if they're trying to mimic the Trump model, that's where you get somebody like Stephen A. Smith, who's just gonna be the unconventional candidate because he's, he says wild things, but not really. It's within the same paradigm that they're talking. He doesn't say controversial things, really.
Mm-hmm.
Just the accepted.
Controversial on their side, probably.
Yeah, right. He's as far politically incorrect as you can go without actually being that. But that's one candidate I've seen. It'll be interesting. I mean, I think what will determine it is what happens in the next few years with Trump and what the issues are. Because Newsom's definitely not out of the woods, even though that fire in California, you would think that would put him out and all the poop on the streets. But.
He's kind of like the Teflon Don. He's got that Teflon Don attribute.
He seems like the most obvious candidate. Maybe we can see like a George Clooney Newsom ticket because they need the populism.
I think Clooney could make a good candidate. I'm not saying like I would support him or anything like that. I'm just saying politically, I think he could make a good candidate because he knows how to speak. He knows how to memorize. He knows how to, he's
act.
Decent looking. He's an actor. He has a huge following. He has the name recognition. He could actually do it. I think I think there's a world where he runs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to think of other like just popular leftists that could kind of step into the ring that you wouldn't really think about.
I think you need a hick lib.
Oh, yeah.
You need like some woke country star or something.
Yeah.
You need somebody that's going to wear the cowboy hat and be like, "I've been on a ranch."
Garth Brooks, baby.
Garth Brooks, yeah. Brooks Newsom.
Brooks Clooney, 2028.
Because I mean, I don't think Hollywood isn't going to appeal to middle America anymore. It already doesn't. So I don't think getting a star like that's really going to. But, you know, if you bring out somebody with a Southern accent who's, you know, they've also hinted at like The Rock running, which I don't really think is gonna go far either. But
what about Bezos?
what is the other billionaire? Nah, the left doesn't like him either.
Okay, yeah,
probably. And he I mean, there is a what is it? An unsaid discrimination against bald people. A bald president hasn't been elected since television came in. So.
And short guys.
Yeah.
Actually got a comment here from Get a Goat and Go. The problem I see is that if Trump is not on the ballot, then we Republicans don't show up at the voting box. Mm-hmm. And that is basically what happened in Wisconsin. And I'm a little worried about midterms and also worried about, I don't know, the 2028. I mean, Trump really has that political capital. And the only person I see on the other side that has similar political capital would be Bernie. And he's handing the torch to AOC. I mean, people underestimate her because she's got like 30 million followers. She's somewhat memeable. And I agree. I'm definitely worried to see an election without Trump is going to be a whole we'll see the durability of the MAGA movement and the power of Trump's campaigning and endorsements after he's gone. But like you said, Silas, I don't know, maybe we'll be able to get rid of that amendment and get a third term. 12 more years. 12 more years.
Do you need 2/3 of the states or 3/4? What is it for?
I think it's. I think it's 2/3. Yeah.
Is it 2/3 and it's voted at the legislature?
Mm-hmm. So you'd need. Not gonna happen.
Yeah, you'd need to.
Well, or Kamala could be. They could go Kamala again. I mean, you got AOC and Bernie out there, and you got Kamala and Obama out there. And get a Goat and Go said the same thing. Kamala, that's a for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go.
Run her.
I'm with her,
guys.
I am with her. There's another shirt for us. But I think and that does bring in the possibility of Don Jr. as like VP for Vance or something. So you get Trump on there, because I don't see Don Jr. I mean, he's almost a wilder version of Trump in some ways. So that could be beneficial. It could be not. So I'm not sure, but I put money on it. That's going to be Vance. I don't see anything else. You can hold me to that. I just don't see it right now.
I don't see him as the nominee. I don't know why. I feel like he's in such a precarious situation being the VP. He might be a shoo-in, but he might get thrown under the bus. There's so much time for him to do something to piss off Trump. I mean, and he is in such a precarious situation to, even just accidentally do something to piss off Trump. But Trump has been very loyal, even with the Signal Gate, where I don't even think the Walz got fired.
No, he didn't.
Which is pretty crazy. I mean, I was in favor of firing that guy.
Yeah, I kind of. If he was the one that invited him, that makes no sense all around how that would even happen. How did you have his number? He's on Signal. It's so dumb.
Yeah, that was weird. Something was off about that story for sure.
Unless he had him labeled as gay number 1 or gay number 2. I meant to invite number 2.
Okay, let's see. Get a goat. I agree Vance is being groomed for taking over to continue the MAGA movement. Well, you're wrong, goat. No,
Well,
I'm
Vance,
kidding. I'm kidding.
he could pull it off if he takes a lot of action but doesn't outshine Trump for the next
Yeah.
4 years. Like if he proves that he'll do things as the vice
Yeah.
and like make moves kind of separate from Trump in a way that are not outshining Trump.
Well, the kind of the understated thing with the Signal Gate was Vance was the only one who was like, hey, do you think this is really worth it? This doesn't really impact the U.S. What about America first? Like, this is more for Europe. Like, why do we care about these shipping lanes? And I'll give him credit for that because I kind of don't think we should be interfering over there for the most part.
I do, but I think it's good. I think it is good. I don't know all the details really, but I think that it is good to kind of almost make an example. I mean, if they really are attacking shipping lanes, it's our job as the it's maybe not our job, but or maybe it shouldn't be our job, but it is our job at the moment to police the shipping lanes. So that's just kind of what we do, and that's what kind of solidifies for
The whole
trade to be
market.
able to be possible.
Yeah.
So I think if the Houthis are going to get froggy and start attacking, I mean, especially when you look at things like that movie Captain Phillips. I don't know if that's the Houthis or whatever. I don't think that's like more like some African Somalis or whatever. But that type of stuff is pretty serious, and I think I think we do have to put on our neocon hats and really make an example. But I'm open to being wrong on that. I guess that America really does have to get together and decide, do we want to be the world police or not? I think a world where we're not the world police could be a disastrous, disgusting,
Or
fucked up world. Or
if
maybe I'm wrong. I'm
Yeah.
open to being wrong. I want to hear your thoughts too, Adrian. Go silence.
if it could be spread out more, I guess. So an agreement where Russia is monitoring certain seas and then China's monitoring certain ones, and there's some crossover maybe. And that way we could pull those resources back in, like at least a third of our resources, and have an agreement with other interests that want to keep, the market running, right? You have to protect all the shipping lanes.
Well, I mean, it to me, it kind of goes against wanting to localize our control of our hemisphere because if we're trying to retreat from globalism to some extent and we want to produce more at home, we want to produce more goods, shipping lanes in the Middle East, I personally don't think we should. I don't think we should be in the Middle East at all in pretty much any capacity because it hasn't worked out in any positive way that I can see for the U.S. and Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya, literally any conflict we've been involved in over there.
It's tough to argue with that.
And I think it's.
But what about the shipping lanes, though?
The shipping lanes. Well, I mean,
same concept. Like I'm saying, like if another country near there were to monitor it rather than us extending that far out. Maybe.
How about Israel takes that over instead of making us do all of their bidding for them? That's my position on.
Whoa, are you an anti-Semite or what?
Not anti-Semite, just
anti-Israel.
That particular nation. I just don't. I don't think that it's worked out for us whatsoever, and they kind of just abuse our power and use it for them.
Yeah. Well, I guess
let's send Mossad. What I'm saying is, let's send Mossad to fight the cartels. How about that?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm down. I'll get Vance on the line. More comments from the goat. Don't ever touch an American ship. That has been the rule since the Barbary Coast and the birth of our Navy. And also says, let's see, once we have our economy and energy all taken care of, we can leave all them alone. Maybe. I mean, we might just, if we retreat, then we basically are allowing other nations like China to, we're basically giving them an opportunity to take over, and I'm just reluctant to do that. I mean, maybe I'm just the resident neocon here, but
Maybe that's part of this whole tariff thing. He's going to raise it to like 400%, and then he's going to be like, "Look, we'll bring it back down to like 50 if we have an agreement of monitoring certain things,
Yeah.
and then if there's weird stuff that starts to happen, he can raise a tariff again, like punishment type of thing."
I totally agree, and that's actually my devil's advocate argument for sending aid to countries, because there's so many libertarians and conservatives and all kinds of people of different stripes that say we should not be funding these other nations. We don't want $1 going to another nation, and I guess, and there's a lot of merit to that. But I think one of the reasons why I could see why it would be a good idea to send money to other nations is because it gives us leverage to say, when they start getting froggy or terroristy or something, we can be like, hey, we're going to take that money away. And, as opposed to just being like, we're going to come in and, start shooting. So I don't know if that's, I mean, what do I know?
If that's how the aid worked, that would be, I think, one thing. But unfortunately, for the most part, I think the aid goes to NGOs who then just
That's
pocket
true.
most of it. It's kind of just a money laundering operation. But
So true. Yeah.
So unless we fix that, we can't really use that.
That's why
tool
tariffs
very
would work.
effectively. Because, yeah, I mean, China builds a lot. They build a lot in developing countries.
Yeah.
And they use that as leverage to gain influence and whatever else.
I had another, to go back to Pelosi, and she said that she said something about we shouldn't disconnect our trade from human rights violations or something like that. And, I saw that video of the leader of the Taliban in Afghanistan saying Afghanistan is open for business. And I always thought, and I've just been thinking about this, like, is it okay to do trade with Afghanistan, even though they have, human rights violations? Or, is it okay to trade with China when they have, seeing what they do with the Uyghurs and having slave labor? Do we need to make a moral stand and say, hey, we're not going to trade with that nation because of, their human rights violations? I mean, it's not exactly a genocide. I mean, I don't know, maybe you could consider what's going on with the Uyghurs a genocide, but should we just kind of be like, look, other nations have their own values and stuff? Because if we get caught into a situation where we're like, we could just do this all day, all day forever, we could just be like that nation's over there doing something we don't like, that nation's over there doing something we don't like. But it's like, well, if you love democracy so much, they're voting for that type of stuff. I mean, maybe not. I don't know how legit the elections are in China, but for the most part, if hypothetically, if countries were voting in, say, Hamas, or voting in, terrorist regimes, or voting in, a caliphate or whatever. So should we cut them off, or should we just kind of be like, you know what, we're not going to say anything about that, but we kind of want your lithium?
Well, until we can produce or trade with countries to completely cut off those entities, we're still in a position like with China. Can we actually just stop buying from China altogether? That's kind of the gambit, going back to our initial conversation with the tariffs. How much of our goods are coming from China? And it's not like you can build all those factories overnight, and if we even have the people to do it. So there is that element in play where you don't have the leverage until you actually have the cards to throw down to say, we're done. If you don't do this, you're done. and they're like, all right, well, you ain't getting any steel for all the ships you need and all whatever else. So, which is kind of the point of manufacturing over, in our country, so we don't have to depend on that, and then we can leverage if we need to. But it's ultimately a hypothetical at this point because we're not sufficient in so many ways, self-sufficient. So.
Well, and I think that's a matter of national security. I think that's the best argument. And I think Besant has been saying that. I think Navarro has been saying that. I think it's a matter of national security. We shouldn't allow somebody like China, which, for all intents and purposes is pretty much a rival, if not a downright enemy, to be, producing all of our medicine. And I see that as just common sense. I think like common sense, that's not a good thing. And maybe we should stop doing that. And a lot of people kind of make it out to be like, well, so what if we don't trade with China, you don't get your cheap iPhone. And it's like, well, it's more than just electronics. There's a lot that comes, there's a lot of like, precursor materials and stuff like that comes from China as well. So like you said, I don't know. I think we would survive if we just cut off from China. But it would be pretty devastating to our economy. I mean, or at least our lifestyle. I think we need to, grow all of our own food. As long as we're growing all of our own food, I think, I think we'll survive, but the energy production is crucial too, because we need energy to survive as well. We need energy to farm. So I think, the GOAT said something about, we need to take care of our energy as well. And, it's been a topic as well. I mean, I think it's just so insane that the Dems think that, producing our own energy is like bad for climate change, but we can buy from Maduro and Iran and all kinds of like dictatorships from around the world and enrich them. And, it's like, it just doesn't even make sense to me. But I don't know. I mean, I think it would be a good idea overall to try to wean ourselves off of China. I think that would be common sense, but who knows? I mean, it's probably more nuanced than I'm making it out to be. It's probably more difficult than just flipping a switch and being like, no, we're going to just make our own stuff from now. Cause like you said, you can't just build those factories overnight, but I don't know. Don't underestimate T Daddy Trump.
Yep.
He can do the impossible.
Yeah. Remember Project Warp Speed?
Oh, let's not. Well, guys, I gotta hit the hay. It's been a long day for me, and it was a good show.
Worries.
That was fun.
Yeah, thanks for hanging. And Goat, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. We appreciate it. And let's do it again soon. What should we nail in a day? What's looking good? Should we switch back to keep it on Thursdays or switch to another day?
For now, we can roll with this and see how it goes. I got long days, but we can try to make it work.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
All right.
Play us out there, Adrian.
Share.
This is the Post Republic. Brought to you by the Fluoride Defense Network and 48 Laws of Power.